Ram Ram. Welcome to the Wise Stories. I'm Yuvragi and here I am with yet another beautiful story from the state of Rajasthan. And if you haven't yet clicked on the bell icon and subscribe to the channel, please do so now so that you get an alert whenever I post the next new story. Let's begin our story today. The story is from an era when people meant what they said. Yes, there was value in the words spoken. The story is about a thief called Dhol Chail, and he was the smartest and cleverest thief of his time. He was so good at what he did that he could even steal the coal from your eyes and you wouldn't even know it. Well, let's listen to his story. Dhol Chail knew that he was so good. However, how does he make a name for himself? How does he prove that he is that good? In order to do that, he had a plan. He decided to challenge the most powerful person around. Who else but the king? So he went straight to the capital city of the kingdom and looked around. He observed that the palace was guarded 24/7. It was impossible even for a bird to enter the palace without permission. So he made other observations. He did a quick recce, and what did he figure? Well, there was this big clock that was installed right on top of the palace, and it chimed loudly at every change of hour. So if it was 4, the clock would chime loudly, it would ring loudly 4 times. So Dhol Chail decided the best time to put his plan into action was night time. And when it was midnight and the clock struck 12 times, he carried solid iron nails and he used a hammer to put those nails right through, and at every chime he hammered in 12 nails through the wall of the palace, and with the help of those iron nails he managed to get inside and steal from the royal treasury beautiful diamonds. He stole a few diamonds from the treasury and escaped. Well, next morning when the king found out about the theft, he was shocked and angry. How could someone steal from the royal treasure and right under the vigilance of his soldiers who were guarding it 24/7? Difficult truth to digest. So the king announced in the royal court that from now on there would be 32 special soldiers appointed to patrol the entire city. And while this announcement was made, Dhol Chail was present in the royal court dressed as a common man, and he heard the announcement loud and clear. He decided to find out who those 32 soldiers are and where did they live. And he disguised himself as a sage and he approached the families, the wives of each of those 32 soldiers. Now in those times, sages and priests were given a lot of regard, and he was welcomed by each of those wives into their houses, and he claimed to have skills. He said, I could read palm, and everybody offered him their palm to read. And when he did, what did he say? Well, you are in for amazing good luck starting tomorrow. You would be the one who is going to capture this thief if you follow my advice. Late at night or early morning hours, the thief will come to your house dressed in your husband's clothes. He would even sound like him, but do not open the door. And when the opportunity is right, throw burning hot coal on him so that he gets injured and it's easy to nab him. The wives listened carefully and with keen ears. And that night when the 32 soldiers went on patrolling the entire city, the women waited at home. They patrolled the entire city and there was no one to be seen. They got very, very tired and decided to return home. And when they did, around 4 in the morning, they were in for a royal welcome. Yes, coal, hot burning coal was showered upon them. The women believed what the sage had said. Oh yes, the man is dressed like our husband. He even sounds like him. And each one of them threw hot burning coal on their husband. And the poor husbands were injured and were rushed into the hospital. When next day the king heard of the story, this episode, he was very, very angry. And he decided to call the chief of army to take things in his hand. And the chief of army came, twirling his moustache, and said, I will not disappoint you, your royal highness. And he went patrolling that night. And what did he see? There was this young woman covering her face, washing clothes next to the lake. So he was curious and he said, Ma'am, what are you doing at this unearthly hour washing clothes? Aren't you scared? There's a thief at loose. And then she whispered, Sir, the thief is called Dhol Chail and I am washing his clothes. I am sorry to disappoint you, but he is very kind-hearted. None of the people in this town pay me as much as he does. I have 2 little children to look after. So this is the best solution I can think. Please, please let me do this work. Don't take it away from me. And that's when the chief of army thought, well, that's my opportunity. How about I sit in her place and capture the thief? So for double checking, he asked, are you certain that the thief will return? And the woman nodded her head. Yes, sir. He would come to take his clothes. See in this pile. Army chief said, can you help me? I want to sit in your place to nab the thief. She said, why are you taking away my only source of employment? He said, don't worry. And he took out 2 gold coins and gave it to her. That will take care of you and your family. And she was very happy. And she offered him a lehenga, a skirt, a orna like this, and a top. So the chief of army was dressed as a woman, wearing a veil, covering his face, sat down by the lake, started to wash those clothes, and sniggering walked away. That woman, who was actually Dhol Chail dressed as a woman. That was how funny the situation had become. Next day morning, when people started to come by the lake to fill water, to wash their utensils, to wash their clothes, they were in for a big, big laugh. What did they see? The chief of army dressed as a woman washing clothes. Oh my God, he was laughed at, made fun of, and poor guy had lost all that respect that he'd earned with so many years of work. When he returned and the king heard of the entire story, king found it funny, yet he was very disappointed. He decided to take things in his own hands, and just then his chief minister folded hands, said, Sir, your royal highness, please give me a chance to nab that thief for you, sir. I promise you I will not disappoint you. To which the king agreed, and the chief minister went patrolling that night. The chief minister was a lover for technology. He loved technology, and he himself kept inventing different equipments, different machinery, just to make things easy. So this time he had come up with a thief catcher, which was nothing but handcuffs and ankle cuffs linked with a strong chain, and the mechanism was with a click of a button. There was no lock and key, and he wanted to put that to test, and he was very excited. Well, he went patrolling around the entire town that night, and there from a narrow street sauntered a young man, and the chief minister asked, who are you? And he said, well, I'm the thief. And he looked him down to up and up to down and said, are you joking? Is this a joke to you? And he said, no sir, I'm honest. I am the thief. And he said, really? Well, I'm so excited. Come with me. And he took him to where his horse was tethered to a tree, and he took out his invention, the thief catcher. He said, look at this. I've created this with my own hands. It's called the thief catcher. All it needs is a click of a button, and it cuffs your hands and your ankles. He found it unbelievable that anything like this would really work, and he said, "Sorry sir, sorry to disappoint you, but I don't think this is going to work." The chief minister, "Why not? I can demonstrate to you." And there was a bit of an argument where finally the chief minister decided to demonstrate his invention. So he took the man's help. He cuffed himself on the hands and on his legs with a click of a button, and that's when the young man, who was Dhol Chail himself, folded his hands and said, "Ram Ram," and walked away. Oh my goodness! That's when the chief minister realized that he was telling the truth. That man was actually the thief Dhol Chail, and he was fooled. And he stood there, locked in his own invention, became a laughing stock of the entire town until the next morning, when everybody discovered him standing there as a statue, handcuffed and ankle cuffed in his wonderful invention, the thief catcher. When the king heard of this, he was very disappointed, and he decided to take things in his own hands. He walked that night patrolling the entire town. He rode his horse a couple of rounds, and the third round he noticed there was a man sitting under a tree, looked like a sage, and that man was actually Dhol Chail dressed as a sage. And the king approached him, said, "Baba, have you seen any stranger passing by?" So the man replied, the sage said, "Sir, I have been meditating. I have no idea who has come or who has gone. However, if you want, you can sit here next to me to keep an eye." And that's when the king had an idea. He thought to himself, how about I sit in his place and he takes my place to patrol around the town. So with folded hands he requested, "Baba, how about we swap clothes? It would help me capture this thief I'm looking out for. You take my horse and wear my clothes and go on rounds while I sit here dressed up as a sage. Nobody will recognize me, and I can keep a vigilant eye to see if any stranger passes by." After a lot of cajoling and convincing, finally the sage agreed, and they swapped clothes. Now Dhol Chail was dressed in king's clothing. He was given the king's horse, and he rode. He rode straight to the palace and went straight to king's bedchambers and fell asleep, while the poor king, dressed as a sage, waited and waited and waited under the tree, but no one came by. Even the man who he had swapped clothes with did not return. The king got suspicious, and he got up and walked back to the palace, wherein he was stopped by the royal guard, and he said, "Well, let me in, I am the king." And they looked at each other and said, "The king already came a few hours back. You are an impostor." And they nabbed him and threw him in jail. Next morning, when it was bright daylight, the jailer saw the king in the jail, and with folded hands, he was shivering like a leaf. He let him out, and he pleaded for forgiveness. "Sir, your majesty, please forgive me. What a big mistake I have committed." The king rushed straight to his bedchambers, but found no one. Neither was Dhol Chail there, nor were his clothes, and his horse was missing too. That's when the king thought to himself that this man is clever, always one step ahead of me. This man as an enemy is a formidable enemy. I don't want that. However, if I can make him my ally, that could prove to be a great situation to be in, a great strength position to be in. So the king announced next day in the royal court that whoever is the thief, present yourself to me. I promise you to forgive all your crimes, and not only forgive them, I would also reward you. That's when Dhol Chail came forward with folded hands and said, "Your Majesty, I am Dhol Chail, the thief, and to prove that I am the one, here is the diamonds that I stole from the royal treasury. Here are the diamonds I stole from the royal treasury. Here are your clothes, and this is your horse." Now the king kept his word, and just as promised and announced, he forgave Dhol Chail. he not only forgave him, he announced him to be the master of a few villages and appointed him to be one of his royal advisors. That's how he made that foe, the clever Dhol Chail, his aide, his companion, his advisor, and kept him closer to himself. So that was the story of Dhol Chail. I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to click that bell icon and also to subscribe to my channel. Ram Ram.